You're listening to episode number 30 of the Indie Film Tribe podcast with me, your host, Angela Matamocha. Welcome! Hi, good people. Hi. Angela Matamocha here of Indie Film Tribe. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, I am super excited, and I know I say this almost every week, but on today's episode, I have this amazing woman on the line. She is a producer. She is a manager at Arclight Films. I have personally worked with her as a producer on a short film that we produced together. She helped me produce my feature film, Elevate, and she is just an all-around outstanding gal. Ladies and gentlemen, Jesica Andres. Welcome, Jess.
Hi, Angela. Thanks for having me.
Oh my God, I'm so glad to just finally talk with you. So for people that are listening, Jessica and I, we are always on the phone just talking about different trends, different things that we see in the industry, because both of us come from kind of different aspects of it. I'm in production as a filmmaker, as most of you listening know, and she has a perspective of being in production behind the scenes, but also she understands the world markets. She understands sales agents. There's just so much that I go to her for when I have these kind of questions. So Jessica, let's just get right into it, because I know this is going to be an action-packed episode. First things first, what is it that you love about being a producer? Let's start there.
Gosh, I mean, there's so much to cover from that one word, which is being a producer or producing, because part of what we do in this industry, of course, is finding projects that really resonate for us. And for me, finding those projects that are like diamonds in the rough. So starting from development, you see something, you see its potential, you feel like it connects with a certain audience, and then putting together like a really good strategy. And that strategy starts off with who's going to be a writer in building that project if you don't have a writer on board, or what kind of deals do you want to put together for your talent or with your directors, like putting together the right creative team, and then understanding the finance plan behind it, because my perspective is from the perspective of sales. So we're always trying to see the end goal and not just the creative package that we're putting together. How are we going to create this movie and put a movie together that can be fully financed and still have legs to exist beyond what we what we have in our heart for it, and really see this project all the way through to the end, getting it theatrically released, getting it released via VOD or DVD, finding the right markets for it. So it's really that fun experience of finding something great and seeing it all the way through to having it released and having it marketed. And that's really kind of like where my passion lies in putting together these films, or being involved in them, excuse me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I can imagine, when you first get a project, does your mind just start automatically going, as far as ways, what territories is this going to sell best in? Or what's a good marketing idea or a good marketing angle? Is all of that, alive in your mind as you are first presented with something or you're looking at something new?
That's a really good question, Angela, because just to touch a little bit on my background, I actually come from international sales. So when I kind of wrapped up with film school, my first question to myself was, where are all of these projects going? And why are some of them ending up in one place and some of them are ending up in different places? Some of them get released, theatrically, and some don't. And so it kind of brought me to the world of sales that most people aren't exposed to. And what tends to happen in that business environment, so to speak, it's like they're looking at a creative project really as product.
Right.
How will an audience, how will a demographic look at this and kind of judge it in that sense of, do you think it's going to be great for, Europeans are going to love it because it's an art house film, or it's an action-packed movie, it's going to be great for X, Y, and Z territories. Those kinds of basic questions. And so when we're going back to your question of when we're looking at certain projects to be involved with, for us to become involved with, we're looking at it from the lens of how can we put this together and are our buyers, our international distributors, going to be interested in this project from the level that we're coming in at? And the level that we come in at is usually what we call a pre-sale title, meaning the project doesn't exist yet. So we're taking on a project that hasn't been made, and on the basis of that concept, and on the basis of who the director, who the cast is going to be, what the budget is going to be, we're going to wrap up this entire concept, present it to our buyers, and go, we've got a great idea. Do you guys want to cash in on it early on now? And become part of the process. And in return, you're going to release it in your territory internationally.
So that's really interesting, because I'm thinking someone that's maybe from an independent background, independent film background, or even an acting background might not realize that you go to a buyer and say, what do you think about this? Here's a question. If you set up this project and they say, or maybe if this XYZ was happening as well, do you get a lot of that?
It's not uncommon. It is absolutely not uncommon. Now, I don't want filmmakers to go out there and feel that this is going to be a hindrance to their process. Think of it as information for you to take and to gain wisdom from. So, for example, you might think that this element is a fantastic element. Oh, they're going to love this person as an actor. Oh, this director is going to be great. We've had an instance just like that, thinking this individual is going to have an impact in the markets that we perceive this person to have an impact in, and it would be a positive impact. It's lucky thing that the people that we were talking to were honest with us and gave us a full assessment of what they thought of that individual. And so it changed the way we approach that role. We wanted to cast somebody for this. That person wasn't right for the role, because we had a completely different idea, and they gave us valuable information about that. So what I'm saying is, for example, for filmmakers out there, if you're casting somebody, try to get somebody that has a little bit of weight for your film, and what we mean by weight is that person recognizable? It makes it really, really helpful for you to get your movie out there. I'm not saying that it's any easier. It's not easy for the people at the top. It's not easy for the people at the bottom or the middle or anywhere else, and that kind of comes with having a good project. That's the first thing I have to say. If you have a good quality project on your hands and people are very excited about it, it's a lot easier to talk about and to sell. So, that kind of makes a really big difference.
Let me backtrack for a bit. I want to back up a bit. So when you guys are presented with a project or a concept, does it first start with a script? Are you first reading a script?
Yes.
And are these scripts coming to you from agents? Are independent writers just sending them to you? How do you know which scripts to read? Because there are millions out there, literally.
Yeah. Technically, what normally happens is we don't accept unsolicited scripts. So it's normally from familiar channels. It can come from agencies. It can come from people we know. A friend of mine sent me a script, and he was looking for a sales agent for it. And because I trusted his taste, and he presented a very good script. It's a comedy. It's not normally in our wheelhouse, and I'm still assessing to see if it's something that's right for us. I would read it. I would totally read it. Normally, sometimes we get cold calls and, people just checking in. It's difficult for us to assess that kind of situation, especially if someone just, drops a script on our lap and we can't vet for it. So, yeah, it's a little hard. I'm not saying it's impossible for other companies, but for us, we don't accept unsolicited material.
Right. Get it. Okay, so you get a script, you read it, and you decide, okay, this is what we're going to focus on. Let's package this. So in packaging, I'm just trying to have our listeners kind of understand the process, what it looks like from your end. So in packaging, you are talking about the director that's going to be attached. You are talking about the actors that are going to be attached. It sounds like you're also talking about what buyers want. And I'm assuming international and local buyers. Is that right?
Well, when we talk about buyers, domestic and international, it's just kind of like one big lump. But yes, when we package a project, we're normally working in tandem with different agents. It always helps to have a good relationship with the agencies for obvious reasons. And it also depends on the way that you want to shoot your film. And what I mean by that is, say, for example, you've got a movie and you want to get the most bang out of your buck. So you're going to select a state. Let's say you're shooting domestically in the United States. You're going to select a state that has good tax incentives. Instead of like dollar for dollar losing every penny that you have, you want to be able to maximize those tax credits or tax incentives. Like, for example, Georgia or New York. We shot a film in New York earlier this year in January, and we were able to get back a certain percentage of our budget. So it ultimately helps with shooting your film because you're getting something back for literally spending money in that state, if that makes any sense, right?
Interesting.
So what does that mean in terms of impacting your budget? What it means is when you work with your line producer, you may make certain selections in what you have in that team, in your package team. Now, if you're shooting internationally, which is what we do, we've shot movies in China, we've shot movies in Australia, it gets a little trickier because some countries, in order for you to tap into those government subsidies, have specific requirements. Like you have to have an Australian actor, you have to have an Australian lead. You can't have, everybody in the kitchen sink is an American and only have one actor,
Right.
In order for you to shoot in China, it's like you have to have, if you want it to be a Chinese co-production, meaning like you're not a foreign film going into China, but you're rather you're a Chinese film. You have to have some Chinese elements in the script that are organic. They're not stupid. They know when someone's trying to force a Chinese element into a script. It actually
Suddenly like kung fu fighting.
oh my god, you have no idea some of the stuff that we've seen. It's just like some random Chinese stuff that falls out of the sky, and it's like that's a Chinese co-production. They're not stupid.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I mean, like they know what they're throwing money into, but again, it's those relationships that will dictate. It's that finance plan. It's your plan of producing your film that in some cases will dictate the elements that you need creatively. Like you might need an Australian director because you're shooting in Australia. You might need like specific Chinese cast to be able to cater to the Chinese audiences that will impact, ultimately like your Chinese deals if you have one. For Europe, which I haven't really been exposed to shooting in Eastern Europe or anything like that, but I'm sure that they have other elements that are required for that. Ultimately, if you do decide to shoot in another or in a foreign country, just be aware of how that will impact your creative decisions. Because the last thing that you want to do is realize that you've got 3 good actors and all of them are like way beyond your budget.
Right.
So,
right.
That you end up in that kind of like weird quandary of so-and-so is going to cost you like, an arm, a leg, and 15 goats. You're like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? So it's always kind of like a little bit of a catch-22 sometimes.
It sounds like some of the budgets that you work on are they're indie. And this is the whole funny thing with indie right now. As you know, an indie film can be a film that costs $1,000. And an indie film is also a film that costs $10 million. That's also indie, right?
Yes, it is true.
So I wonder for the independent filmmakers that we do have listening on the line today, what I really want to have them take away from this conversation with you is what how they could use your experience in the sort of bigger indie film world into our maybe like, $50,000 budget film world, $100,000 budget film world. Because I'm assuming what you guys are doing and the way you package things and wrap things up, we should probably be thinking along those same lines. Yeah?
Right. No, okay, so here's kind of like the 2 cents that I have on that. When you're creating a movie in that 50,000, in that
the SAG ultra low budget, right? I think it's 100,000 or less is considered the SAG ultra low, right?
Right. So at that point, I'm going to make the grand assumption that a lot of favors are being pulled. If you can pull those favors to benefit the film, meaning if you can get a friend who's got certain weight and recognition as cast, pull that friend in. That as much of your money can be put towards making the film look good, giving it quality, because we get a lot of like smaller films at times that are being, presented to us. And unfortunately, the production quality is not that great. And that's tough. The last thing you want to do is have a movie that actually does look like a low budget movie. Filmmakers are using this this vehicle right here to get them to the next level. So you want that, the limited budget that you have, and considering all the technology that's available in this day and age, maximize and make your movie look as great as possible. That's one way to separate yourself from the crowd. Another way to do it is, again, if you have friends who have some weight or have some pull or who have some name recognition that can elevate your project, by all means, beg as much as you can to put them into it. That's not a bad idea because, again, it sort of elevates your project. Dare I say, and this is something that stands out for a lot of other projects that come to us, it's also really important to know what your project is. If you want to make a horror movie that's really scary. Right. If you're going to make a comedy, people have to be laughing out loud while they read the script. Because that being able to master your genre is extremely important. Now, here's something that I actually learned from a friend of mine, and she went through she went through this experience, and it was really interesting. She and her friends produced a short film. The short film got a lot of awards, and because of it, they started to develop a script. And that script, because of the notoriety of the film, the short film that they made, it actually got them into a bunch of development meetings with studios.
Off a short film.
Off a short film, because the thing of it is, and this is what she told me, but this is what she said: make a short film from your feature. She's like, it's easier to do that than to develop a feature script from a short, having to take a short and then develop a whole story around it. She says, if you have a full feature script that you've worked on, take a segment of that and visualize, show people what you've had in mind, make it amazing, and use that as your marketing tool to get as much funding as you can.
Okay, pause. This is great. Pause right there. I really want to grab onto this. So what she said is, so you have a feature film script. So you have the script. Yeah. But instead of shooting the entire feature, find an element in that feature that can work as a standalone short film.
Sure. Yeah, it's like, let's say, for example, you've got one of the most tense scenes that you have in there, and each scene should technically work in some way or another, like a short film, like a good tight scene, like maybe 5-10 minutes max. Don't make it long, or else you're going to lose your audience. And hook people right into it. Make them want to know what the rest of the movie is about. And the great thing about it is you're not going to be wasting your time trying to pitch a feature because you already have one. Because you're already jumping past the hoop of trying to create something because you already have a feature to present people. And I remember there was another person whose short that we saw, and the short was amazing. It was gripping. Probably 5-10 minutes of just gripping thriller of a short. And they were same thing. It had come from a feature script that she was doing. And so she was beginning to get funding for her feature script. So it's it serves as a double-edged sword between, just being a standalone short, but really turning into a very effective marketing tool because people can see what your vision is.
So when people are just grabbing a piece from their feature film and making it a short, are there adjustments that have to be made so the short can work as a standalone? So there is a beginning, middle, and end.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Whatever way you're looking at it, you want people at the edge of their seat watching your short.
Right.
And then you can start pitching to them this idea that you have for a feature for it. And then it's easier to pass that script than to lose the momentum that you have by spending another 3 months writing it. You've got it right there. It's like, okay, yeah, I shot the short here. Take a look at it. Oh my gosh, your short is great. Blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? It's actually, I'm actually working on a feature for it. Want to take a look?
I love that.
I learned so much from that entire experience right there. And even she learned, she totally was like, it became so much easier for her in that process. So,
and you hear that a lot too. I've always heard, for a director, a short film is their calling card. But I've always wondered, well, how? How is a short film your calling card? And I think you just answered that question in yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah. I love that. All right. So for people listening, thinking about making a feature, maybe you do have a feature film script. This is a very interesting way to go about getting funding. Like Jessica said, make a short film, to use, and this is the cat right here, you make a short film to use to market for your feature script idea.
Right. And again, this is coming from a place of, how do I say this? Like, most of the talent that, you know, that we work with at the level that we're working at, they already have a body of work that serves as a presentation. You know, when people are looking at directors and they're looking at talent, they're looking at their body of work. And that's something that, as a young filmmaker, or, you know, a filmmaker starting out, you have to look at it as, what body of work are you presenting when you're showing them stuff? And that short film that you're doing becomes part of that body of work. They have to see something. They know, you know, the talent is there. There just has to be something to actually see how that talent is, you know, they have to see that talent. And that's why it's so important to being able to put something out there, especially when you're starting out and you're, you know, you're getting your name out there. It's by no means easy, but, you know, it's a start. You always have to start somewhere.
And what I love about this too, like for people that are listening that are thinking, gosh, I just want to make my feature. I just want to make my feature. Like, yes, we all want to make a feature, but what Jesica is saying is so doable. A short is just so much more doable than a feature. Oh my gosh.
And here's another thing. I mean, this sounds a little ridiculous, and it's not. Another friend of mine suggested this because she was doing it herself. With the technology that we have, you can actually shoot something before you spend a grand amount of money shooting something bigger. You know, tweak your story. You know, shoot the scene that you see in your head. Use your phone. Use like a regular, and just do the simple stuff. Because the thing of it is, you can tweak that on your computer. So by the time you get to actually shooting that short that you want for your feature, every shot counts. And the only reason I say that is because sometimes it's a very overwhelming process to shoot anything. By the time you get there, you're afraid.
Yes.
You know, and then like you're burnt out, you're exhausted, you're tired. It's a lot of work. But if you've gone through like some of the process of, okay, you know, I've shot the scene, I kind of like this is what I want to work with, that might actually help. You know, it's going through kind of like a shoot and edit mode, you know, if anything else, without feeling the stress of like there's so much money riding behind you, if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense, and I like that. Jess, I want to veer towards a conversation and talk about this again that we actually had the other day, and that is this kind of trend that we're seeing, because like you said, anyone these days can shoot a film. Anyone can pick up a camera. You know, the technology we have makes it super simple for many, many people. So because of this, and I would love for you to speak on this, there's so much content out there, right?
Yeah.
There's so much content out there. And I know you spend every year at AFM and many year at Cannes Film Festival. Have you seen a change at AFM, at Cannes, because of all this kind of newer content that's coming in that maybe we didn't have to sift through before? I feel like there's so much.
You know what? That's a really, really tough question. And the reason why I say that it's a tough question is because I've gone to AFM for a number of markets now. I've seen the stuff that they have in Cannes. And the difficulty that's happening is budgets are getting smaller.
Yep.
You're able to get name casts for, you know, for certain amounts, you know. And, you know, what's happening with the independent film world is that, you know, it's tougher to be able to compete with other small films. Let's say for this is just like a ridiculous example, but say for example, Moonlight. They shot for $1.5 million. You know, they got some pretty amazing cast. They got Mahershala Ali.
Right.
It's a beautiful movie. Love that movie.
Yes.
But that's what you can do for 1.5. Yeah. If that movie didn't get the notoriety that it did, I don't know what would have happened to that film. It's just like half of it is the luck of the draw. So when we see the product out there is a lot of product, and some of them don't find their way to a home, and that is difficult. It's just, I don't know if I'm being, you know, inspirational here at all. Or anything.
I don't need inspiration. Just what you've seen from your experience, your honest thoughts. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, like, for the most part, your film has to find a way to stand out. You have to find either something honest or know your niche audience, know how you can use a hook when you make that film. So when you throw it out there, it knows where it wants to go. It really knows where it needs to go. Because there is just too much out there in the market right now. There really, really is a lot of content out there in the market. And the problem is, a lot of that content can be gotten for so cheap, and a lot of the times people are pirating a lot of stuff. So it becomes very difficult for studios and like, other avenues to, how would you say this, just pick up anything off the street. Just going to pick anything off the street. Everything that they have right now, they're going to pick off something that they know people are going to want to watch. They're going to have to want to watch that.
Right.
So, every time I've ever talked to any kind of like salesperson, they're always going to look at a film and go, well, does this thing know what it wants to be? Is this comedy super funny? Is this horror movie super scary? And people will take a risk. Don't get me wrong. People will take a risk if that movie just like pops out at them. I have heard so many stories of that small movie that no one thought would get anywhere. But then somebody found it and went, oh my God, this is amazing. And the next thing you know, everybody wants it. And it just shoots through the roof. Like, that was Paranormal Activity for the time being. I know people who like saw that movie and then they bought it like right off the market.
How important is a film festival run or a successful film festival run for some of these smaller films?
It is.
Look at that. Is that can you use that to leverage, a distribution deal, a connection to a sales agent?
My experience with it has always been the other way around. So normally what it is we have a film, and if we feel that the film is going to be a right fit for a certain festival, then we're going to push it. We're going to do our best to get it into a certain festival. And normally for sales, there are top tier festivals that mean a lot to them, which means that there could be an influence for further sales down the line. Those festivals it's Cannes, it's TIFF, it's Sundance, it is EFM, which is the Berlinale, and it's also Venice. Telluride is also another tastemaker amongst film festivals. What that means is buyers actually look at these festivals for product that they otherwise might not see in in the normal theatrical space. So it's like they're going to look for that diamond in the rough. And they may actually take a movie that nobody's ever heard of that they found at a festival and push it towards a bigger, a larger platform, a larger release. Now, is that important for filmmakers? If you can aim for those festivals, go for it. If nothing else, if your movie gets in, it's a great thing to add to your resume. It's not everybody gets to add Cannes or Berlinale or TIFF to their resume, but that really elevates your profile, especially for projects down the line. It really separates you from the pack when it comes to that. Now, when it comes to more local festivals, that's a little tougher. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to garner any kind of sales, but you just never know. Somebody from another, distribution house might have seen it at, the Hamptons, liked it, picked it up, but that's not any guarantee.
Okay, Jess, so I have to ask this. For the filmmakers that are listening, we finish our feature films and we start submitting to all of these big festivals. Now here, I'm listening to you that's working in sales, that is a manager at Arclight Films. This is just one company. There's hundreds all over Hollywood and Beverly Hills. So these actual agencies are trying to push films into these festivals. And then you have these little independent filmmakers trying to push their little films into the same festivals. How the heck do you break through all that as just a little independent filmmaker? You're competing against massive companies and distributors and sales reps.
That's why it's so important for your film to stand out.
Say that again?
It's so important for it to stand out. I cannot tell you how busy the space is. And it's tough for people at our level. Do you think that just because that we're at a sales agency and, we have, somebody at the different agencies that we can call on and, you have an X million dollar movie, that doesn't mean that it gets into the festivals either. A movie has to stand on, it has to be able to stand alone on its own. It has to be good. at least for the programmers. The only difference that a sales agency would have is that you can actually tap someone and say, can you go look at my movie? I'm going to bypass the submission portal, which I can do. I can bypass the submission portal, tap someone on the shoulder and go, can you take a look at this film and let me know your thoughts? We think it'd be great for your festival. If they love it, they'll take it. If they don't, sorry. And that's happened to us many times before.
So does it then become very important for an independent filmmaker to attach a sales rep to their film as soon as possible?
That really depends. And I know that's not necessarily a straightforward answer. What do I mean by that? A sales rep will have, so this is, as a sales rep, this is the stuff that I would ask, having been in this situation before. Somebody brings me a script and says, okay, we're looking for a rep. Would you be interested in repping us? The first thing that any sales rep would want to know is, do you have a budget? Have you had a budget in mind? Do you have a finance plan? Meaning, have you thought about how you're going to put money into this? Or do you need us to step in and help you put together financing? Because if that's the case, it changes the conversation. We have to be able to assess a script and see whether it fits our wheelhouse. What that means is not all sales agencies are the same. Some sales agencies just want to focus on the meat and potatoes horror and action movies. Other people are more, they're looking for more elevated material. Like they want something that's, very art housey, or, other people want, more commercialized, genres. Everybody across the board wants to make money. So that's what sales agents are in it for, the money. Don't get me wrong, but they also have taste. The best sales agents have taste, and they are not afraid of taking a chance on taste when they see good material. Now, secondly, they're also going to ask you, who do you have attached? If you're coming to them with hat in hand script and just offering it to them, that makes it a little difficult because you're asking them to do the legwork for you. What that means is, if you don't have a director attached, if you don't have cast attached, it becomes difficult for them to assess if the marketplace is going to respond to this project because they have nothing. They have nothing on it yet, right?
What if you come to them with a finished product?
If you come to them with a finished product, then they're going to watch it and they're going to tell you whether it's for them or not. Once it's finished, it's a completely different story. And we've had people send movies to us. We'll watch it. I'll finish through an entire thing and go, it's really good, but I don't know if it's for us. It's like a very niche war movie about a very niche demographic, and I don't know who would want to watch this. It doesn't mean that the movie isn't great. It just means that I don't know who wants to watch this. Because remember, that's what sales does. You have to be able to slot it into your distributor.
Yes. Okay. So for the filmmakers that are listening, and just because I want us to really understand this, and especially coming from a sales point of view. So when you have a finished product and you're taking it to the sales agent, what the sales agent wants is to know that they can, like you said, make money off this movie, have something to sell. How important to the sales agent is making sales in these foreign territories, in the Chinas, in the Europes?
That's pretty much, in my experience, that's kind of the bread and butter of it.
Say that again?
And that's what, influences them in between selecting projects that are elevated, that, are like the diamonds in the roughs, the potential Oscar award-winning projects. They've got to keep the lights on.
Right.
So they're going to look for projects that are meat and potatoes, but that are good, that have certain casts attached, that they can sell, that they can tell their buyers, hey, I've got this action movie with X, Y, and Z. This is going to be great for your territory. That's it. They want to be able to say something like that, and their buyers will just scoop that stuff up.
So foreign sales is huge.
Foreign sales is honestly, this is a remote control. You need this for your TV. Buy it. It knows what it wants to be. It's so it's so straightforward that it doesn't get any, it's not very creative in that sense. What is creative is understanding what the market is looking for.
That's always changing, right?
It's constantly changing. And that's what makes a good sales agent. A good sales agent has a pulse of the market. They know what the territories they're looking for. They know who's about to become hot. They can get a sense of oh my gosh, this person is on this TV show. He's gaining traction. They want to put that person in the movie because like there's a huge following for so and so, you know. So there's that sense for a pulse. You're waiting for that person right before they become that, you know, big star, or they just want the big stars,
Right.
because they sell, you know.
Of course.
And in between, like I said, I don't think anyone's going to just overlook projects. You know, you never know where you're going to find something. However, it is tougher if you don't have an agent. I'm not going to lie. You know, it's harder. It's just harder if you don't have an agent or representation to just kind of get your project in the door. To have someone tap somebody else's shoulder and say, "Do you guys mind taking a look at this and let me know if you guys like this?" You know.
So for the filmmakers that are listening, that are, you know, thinking about making their first feature film or thinking how to get in the door, so to speak, because I love what you said at the very beginning of our conversation, having a feature script, but then just shooting the short as something to market, right? Yeah. So I'm thinking, so can you present a sales agent with this said short film, and also let them know that I do have the script, but here's something I can show you right now?
Well, I have a question for you though, because you don't necessarily need to come to a sales agent for that. You need a full-on producer.
Right.
That's what your producer is to come in for. Now, I know that sales plays a portion of bringing in a potential portion of the budget to get the movie made, but that's what sales is for.
Right.
So remember, if you have a feature script and you made a short, look for a producer, because that producer is supposed to help you package the entire thing. The job of the producer is to go out there and help you find the money, help you find the cast, the director, and get the relationship with the sales agent. They're supposed to think macro for you and do the micro work. That's a good producer. So don't go to the sale. I mean, I'm not saying don't go to the sales agents. Right. What I'm saying is a sales agent that produces their own movie in-house, that's different. However, they're going to look at it from the perspective of, I'm a sales agent. I'm going to produce movies that make money for me. You want to find a producer that goes, I love your project. I am going to hit the pavement, hat in hand, I don't care how, and I will find money for your project because this is great and we're going to work on this together. That's what you want.
Got it. Got it. Oh, I love it. No, this is great. This is great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of a difference there.
No, there really is. And the last thing I wanted to touch on today was this kind of trend that you and I were talking about the other day, how films, and I think especially like dramas these days, where that in the past would have a theatrical release and would be a big studio film. A lot of these films are now indie small films that just get distributed VOD and SVOD.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's a very limited space. It's a very, very limited space. But what I mean by that is there's only so many slots for these release dates with the studios. And the studios are going to slot the ones that make the most money, which is their franchise films, right? And the ones with, like, you know, your massive, massive cast, your Benedict Cumberbatches, your never-ending Nicole Kidman movies. She's in every movie, no matter where I turn. Like, Nicole Kidman, I can't get away from you if I tried. But she's so good.
Because she's so damn good.
I know, she's in the Big Isles, and I'm like, I gotta watch this.
Yep.
So,
I just saw that.
You know, I mean, I guess this is a little thing that I think I remember we spoke about this once before. What tends to happen is you have these great actors, they're scooped up by studios, and they're in these gigantic studio movies, right? And these franchise films, these gigantic films that they're making because they have the money and they have the machinery to do it. You know, they are gigantic studio machines. In the meantime, these actors are also artists. So they want a space where they can create movies that they really like, you know? So they go into the indie space. The space that used to be the space for the upcoming artists is now being populated by these A-list actors who are doing smaller movies and who have the clout and, you know, the relationships to put together, you know, budgets of $4, $5, $6, $7, $10 million films, right? So all of a sudden they're populating that space. And what tends to happen when they populate that space is it becomes more difficult to compete when you're still an upcoming filmmaker, because that space no longer exists for them. Then, of course, you've got the festivals, and the festivals also want the glamour. They want to be able to elevate, you know, their festival, their profile. So what are they going to do? They are going to bring in, the festival movie with the A-list actor who put together his team, who made this amazing movie. And it becomes more difficult for the super indie filmmaker to find a slot in that space. Because guess what? If a major festival can have, red carpet filled with a bunch of big A-list actors and, A-list directors, why wouldn't they?
They're a business too.
Right. Now, I'm not trying to be all doom and gloom. What I'm saying is it becomes more imperative for filmmakers to be very strategic as to how they put together their story, their financing, and build their team. Extremely important, because every bit of that has to go towards making a product, even if it's a short or if it's a feature, making something really amazing for it to stand out. It may not go to the massive festivals, but someone's going to see that and go, oh my God, you know what? Can you direct this instead? Can you do this? And it leads to more work. And that work becomes part of your body of work, which will lead you to something bigger. So it's not an overnight thing. We're not, it's just not. It's a grueling process, and some of the great talent we have out there really take a step back and look at this long, slogging, life they've had to get to where they are. And then that's really part of it, Every person I've ever seen who's made it to some degree, I mean, like they are so grateful at the process that they've gone through. Now, what does that mean? I mean, it's a long, slogging process, but keep at it.
No, and I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that you're not trying to be gloom and doom. What I take away from it, and hopefully our listeners do as well, is just to have this knowledge, to understand the business as a whole and where you can fit in. And if you're struggling, to see like maybe why, and start thinking about other ways to get around this sort of machine that you talk about, right? So it can sound gloom and doom, but I think the more you know, the better.
Yeah, and there's just one last little thing again. In terms of like where content ends up, create what you have, be aware of what's around you. So important to keep watching movies and keep watching TV shows, because it gives you a sense of what's out there. Sometimes what tends to happen is, and I've seen this with especially like other filmmakers who submit their scripts to us, it's like, this is something we've already seen. And if you're working in a bubble, you're creating something that you have in your head but has already been done. So you don't want to do that. Secondly, again, if you're creating a short, and I say this for other people who want to do episodics, I have a friend who's had a friend who has a friend, and a friend, and he did like 8 episodes of, I think it was like some kind of like, gay romantic something, like little mini series of some sorts. It was like 8 minutes each. It was like 8 episodes, and it was picked up by, I don't know, some internet TV channel or something. And what they ended up doing was, they ended up getting more funds to make more episodes for a season 2.
Yep.
And it blew me away, because I couldn't believe that this small little network, they were looking for content. Right. Not only were they looking for content, but they found that content, and they put money towards more episodes. So you never know, and this is what we were talking about the other day, you never know where money is coming from. I kid you not, you never know. The crazy stories I've heard from where money comes from it's like half the time like blows my mind away. Like, there was one friend of mine who left her job where she was producing like, movie of the week type of movies.
Yep.
Left her job finally because she wanted to do her own stuff. And out of nowhere, her friend, who apparently was like managing funds for, I think, like Indian reservations or something, they had all this money and they wanted to put it into making films. And so she ended up with a fat paycheck to shoot a movie in Utah.
Wow.
So it's crazy. So what I'm telling everybody is, this is the machinery of Hollywood, and it looks like you don't stand a chance, but I am telling you, I have seen people beat the odds and make their stuff. Money comes from weird places, but you have to keep showing your body of work, because when they see it, they'll want to put money in it if it's good. So you have to keep at it, and that's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. You never know where it's going to come from. The machine looks big, and it looks like it could be against you, but honestly, you never know where it's going to come from. You just have to keep creating. You just have to keep showing something.
And on that note, I love it. I love it. We're out. Before we bail, Jess, I just want to, just for some fun, I love to ask all my guests this. This is totally non-related now.
Uh-oh.
Oh, and I can't wait to hear your answer, knowing you the way I know you. I'm like, all right. Do you, Jesica Andres, do you feel that you were put on this planet at this particular time for a specific reason? Or for you, is your being here just random?
No. I will go with the former. You know me, Angela. Oh my God. How many times have we done this stuff? I totally feel like I'm here for a reason. I'm still trying to figure that out, but my heart is definitely in, I love putting together projects. I love it. There's nothing more exciting in the world than putting it to it's like electricity. It's like crack. You got to do it, for all the foibles and all like the sleepless nights and everything else and all the heartache, it's so worth it. It really is. And I sound like a crazy person when I say that, but I love it. I love it.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Thank you, Jess, so much for being here. This was just so informative. And I'm going to have you come back on again because I have so many more questions to ask you, but I know we can't be talking all day. Thank you so much for being here. And Indie Film Tribe, thank you so much for hanging out with Jesica and I today. Until next time.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.